Hey, what is going on, guys? Rudelnell here, come back at you with another batch tutorial. Alright, let's get the Windows command line ready, and let's get Notepad++ ready too, so we can get to writing a script. Okay. Now, today we're going to be taking a look at functions, and this is kind of a big concept. It's going to start a new little mini-series inside of the series of batch scripting to begin with, but functions are exactly that. They have a function, they have a purpose. It's sort of like a small subroutine, if you can imagine that, or like a little bit of code that's designed to do something specific. And you can obviously define everything inside the function, what the function will do, how it'll do it, what information it's going to be getting, and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and try this. You might not understand what I'm talking about if this is your first time dealing with something like that, but all it really is a small segment of code. It can be very large even. The function can be as big as you'd like it to be, but it's a segment of code that will do something, and it can pass and work with logic and move things to other functions and that sort of thing. So we're gonna go ahead and create one right now inside of our script. I'll call my script script.bat. Obviously, you can call yours whatever you'd like, and we're going to get echo off started, and now we can echo. This is the very beginning of the program. Okay. Now, usually, when a programmer is working with functions and that sort of thing, he actually creates what normally we would call a main function. And the main function is going to happen, in our case, automatically. That's what we want to happen to begin with. When the program runs, the main function will run. And that's true for a lot of other languages, like especially C++ and C and Java. When you create a main function, that's actually what happens. That is the main function. And from inside that one, that's where our regular code would be. It's kind of like separating the functions that you can call and the function that you want to be actually running with. Now, the main function would have all your normal code that you would write in a regular script. So in our case, this echo is going to be outside of the main function, but we're gonna work with that later on. So the way we create a function in batch, though, is using a little bit of those labels that we worked with in the few videos back, and even the goto command, so we can work with those things to begin with. We can jump back and forth between functions and pass information like variables to them. And we're going to get to that in a little bit later in the series, but for now, just bear with me and we're going to build our first function. So in our case, we're going to call it main, because this is what we want to actually do things. Now, inside of our function, most programmers would indent or have a little bit of white space between that before the thing that was before it and then a new indentation, so you can actually see you almost sort of have like a sub-layer of thought, like you're going beyond what was just there and now you're inside a function rather than what you were in before. So inside of our main function, we'll echo, we'll just echo main function. Main function is being called. Okay. Now when we're ending our function, when we're all done with it, because you can see we started the function up here, everything inside of it would go like with these indents and that sort of thing. And now when we're done working with the function, when we don't have any other more code to add to it, what we would do is we would use the goto command, and this time we have a different label that we're not used to before. Now this label is called EOF, or end of file. Now, we're not really talking about the literal end of file. Hopefully we are when we're talking about the main function to begin with. But in other functions, what this will do is we'll bring you right back to where you were prior. So when we run this, we can cut everything out here that we don't need to see, and all we're going to do in the main function is echo out main function is being called and echo end of file. I'm actually going to get a little bit more spaces here so we can see the difference between the very beginning of the program and the main function. Now when we switch over to our script, we can make sure it's there, and it is, we'll run it, script.bat. This is the very beginning of the program, and the main function is being called. Now when we're trying to add in more functions with other labels and goto calls and that sort of thing, we can put them anywhere because obviously we're just using a label and we can jump to that position inside of our code. But normally, and in my case, I tend to put the functions that we're using outside of the main function above the main function. So what we'll do to begin with is go ahead and right after our add echo off, we'll immediately jump to the main function. And you guys know how to do this. We're going to use the goto main. We'll just type in the name of that label and we'll go to it right there. Okay. So in that case, we've kind of like built a function, and we jump to that position to begin with. Now this echo line right here you're going to notice it, but it's not actually going to happen because we're jumping right past it. So if we clear the screen and run the script, main function is being called, but this echo is completely ignored because we haven't got access to it. We're running to the main function instead. But now we're going to create our own function. So we've done this in main, and what we'll do is create a new label, and I'll just call mine function. And now we want to be able to close this function, because when we're done with it, we can go to the end of file, and that'll return us to the other position. So now what we'll do is we'll echo, this is another function. Okay, and for now, this is all that we're going to want the function to do. It's going to be able to pass information back and forth later. We can manipulate variables inside that function and do more really cool programming stuff with it later on. But for now, I still want to show you guys the concept of actually having a function and being able to call it. So here we are. When we're inside of our main function, this is where we're actually going to want to call the function that we titled up here, function. So now what we do is we actually use a new command, or a new little statement here, called call. C-A-L-L. Now we're going to use the colon, as usual, and we'll call function. And that will display, this is another function. And it's going to go to the end of file when it's done, or at least go back to that position that we were at before. And now what we'll do, right after that function is finished being called, we'll just say end of main function. Echo end of program. Okay, now when we run this, you're going to be able to see what's going on. Main function is being called. This is another function, that's the function that we're calling, and then back inside the main function we're displaying end of the main function, and then we end the program with the go to end of file over here. So you can see what's really happening if we start from the top. We turn off echo, we don't let it display any commands, and then we go immediately to our main function right here, main. And now from within main, we just go ahead and display, this is the main function, and then from within there we call a new function with the call statement. And then there, all we do is echo out, hey, this is a new function that we're running this instead. And now when that has finished, when it's echoed and we're all done in this function, we'll go right back to where we were prior. So when we go out of that one, we're still at echo. So now we're going to echo out end of main function. And then when we're done that, end of program. Okay, that's really all there is to it. It's very basic, it's very, very simple, but we do have a little bit more of a structure here. We can see that we're working with thought in a whole different way. We're almost kind of organizing our regular code from something else that we'd be able to do in a different sort of environment, if you will. All right, that's a whole lot of other nerdy and dorky words that really kind of pretty this up more than it needs to be. But here it is, guys. Here is a basic function, and we're going to be working with these a whole lot more in the series. But I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.